right, so ministry system, if we make a little shift there. So thinking about how, really with this by ministry, like the whole world of getting people serving, getting people onto a ministry team, just some of the systems, some thoughts behind that. I know as far as the fill-ins there, well, a lot of them are already actually filled in there, so we'll have some dialogue to that. For us, again, like with this system, it really goes back to those same questions that we talked about earlier with assimilation. How do we help people find relationships and responsibilities needed and known? For this specific one, we focus on the needed, that needed piece. And then how do we help people find responsibilities in the church? I think one of the things we probably all have in common today with this system is that we would all love more leaders in the church. We'd all love more people helping out somewhere in the church. Would you agree with that? Like, I think that's probably something that we all have in common. And the only way, as far like even from a church growth standpoint, the only way to keep breaking past different growth barriers and even a little bit of growth is to give ministry away. For us to not feel the need to control everything or do everything like the way we would do it, but to give ministry away and growing the team of people who make that happen. John Maxwell said, if you don't have a big dream, you don't need a big team. But the reverse of that is true. If you have a big dream in you, that the influence that you feel like God wants your church to have or churches to have, then you need a team to make that happen. So how can we help people find those relationships and responsibilities? I think the key question, this is a question that our team works through consistently, is this fill in your notes there. The key question, what keeps people from serving? So instead of maybe thinking about like today, okay, how can we get more people serving? We'll talk about some of that. How can we get more people? Maybe a good place to start is just what keeps people from serving. And I think for these, oftentimes they're just such simple things, such practical things that maybe we sometimes just kind of overlook as far as some of the different things that keep people from serving, from finding a ministry team. Volunteering. Nothing wrong with that word. We don't use the word volunteer. We use serving because we feel like with the mission of Jesus, it's so much more than just volunteering your time or something like that. But it's not a bad word. But what keeps people from doing that? And I know these are already filled in with your notes, but I think one thing is just that I know as I observe churches sometime, and I've seen it like even in our church early on, the fact that like team, like being a part of it, being a part of something bigger than just one person, being a part of something that people know is making a difference, just that team feel, just not being a part of the overall culture. So often when we communicate to people about serving or finding a place to serve, it often comes off as, hey, could you, like, we really need more kids workers, and we do. Okay, but we really need more, we really need this, we really need this. Would you like we're looking for some people, right? But the kind of the vision of no, this is a team here, and if you're part of this team, like you're going to be using your life to make a difference, because in our culture, like people want to be a part of something that is much bigger than just one person, that is genuinely making a difference. And so how we communicate that, and you guys have probably heard this before, but just the difference of sometimes of how we communicate things, like communicating need versus communicating vision for something. When we stand up, and it's okay to do this from time to time, but if the only way we ever communicate getting new volunteers or getting new team members or whatever is, hey, we really need 5 more people. We really need it. Here's what many people are thinking. Okay, there's a reason you need that, and I'm not sure I want to find out. So there's a reason, evidently, nobody else wants to jump in on that team, and I'm not sure that I want to find out. And so if it always comes off as just kind of we need, instead of the vision piece, instead of like the church culture feeling like, hey, we're like this is a team, and as I said earlier, trying to build that culture to where people sense like if you're not a part of what we call the dream team, if you're not a part of that, you're missing out. you're missing out on what God has for you. You're missing out on what even the church could do for you. So building it into your culture, like serving is not something we do. It's who we are. It is who we are as a church. So just having that be a part of the culture. I think the second thing is just a lack of excitement about the difference serving makes. I think one of the best ways to do this, we talked about this a few different times just in different areas, but like sharing stories of serving. This Sunday, we're in a relationship series talking about being, so love is not self-seeking, so we're talking about being selfless in the context of relationships, but I will talk about serving in the message, like even thinking about our dream team, but even communicating in a way like, hey, family's here today. Imagine the difference in your family if every single one of you found a place to serve. And like you're serving together, imagine the difference that could make in your family and in your kids' lives and whoever else. So sharing those stories. Here's one of the biggest mistakes I think we make sometimes even as pastors. Like we're often the heroes of our own stories, especially from a serving standpoint. So it's sometimes us sharing like the story of a need that we met or whatever, instead of like making our people the heroes. So share a story about like somebody in kids ministry and the difference that they've made serving, but just kind of a lack of excitement about that. Again, if it always comes off as need, and it's okay to communicate some things like as need, like sometimes that's a reality. But if it's our only approach, then it'll dry out pretty quickly. I think the third thing that keeps people from serving is unclear expectations and next steps. So just unclear. See, what we've found is most people in our church, and contexts are different, I get that, but most people, they come in thinking that to serve in a church, okay, to jump on one of these teams, it means that I'm going to be serving every single Sunday at both services. And so we have to right away, hey, at Epic, here's what serving means. Okay, it doesn't mean every single week. We're all in different seasons of life. Some of you have more availability than others. You can decide what that looks like for you, whether it's once a month or 2 times a month or whatever. And it's never in both services. So we have a serve one, attend one culture. So if you're gonna serve in a service, then it's gonna be one, because we want you to attend a service as well. So setting those expectations up. We also tell people like this is not because that's what most people think. Like I'm gonna serve every service every single Sunday for the rest of my life. And so we tell people, no, like think of it as a season. If you have a change in your flow in life and you need to jump off the team or find a different seat on the bus, that's totally fine. So just clearing those expectations up, and then just what the next steps are for people. For us, that goes back to that Discover track. I won't revisit that because that's kind of the first step that we send people to. But like what? All right, help me. Like, what's the next step I need to take? So unclear expectations, unclear next steps. I think the fourth thing, we've hit on this a little bit, but what keeps people from serving? Ineffective recruitment and follow-up. Ineffective recruitment and follow-up. I wrote this down in my notes. Many churches have one strategy for new people: announcements. And that's it. And I've been there too. And I have tried until I'm like blue in the face. And I'm amazed at like when we go to other approaches, how many more people, we'll talk about just that whole thing of recruitment in a moment, but if that's our only strategy, hey, we need new people on the team. If you're interested, talk to so-and-so after the service today. Okay, it's not like a wrong, it's not like a bad, but if that's our only strategy, that would probably go under this thing of ineffective recruitment and follow-up. I know I mentioned that earlier, but that was one of the holes in our system, is even the follow-up. Like, people were getting one email, and then, like I would ask, like, even some of our team, hey, what happened to so-and-so? Like, they said they were interested, and, like, what happened? Well, I sent them an email, and I didn't hear back. Well, no. Then we need to call them, or we need to, we shored up some things just with that Discover track that has helped with that, but because I'll be honest, like I think with some of our staff and some of our leaders, when it came to following up with people who said, yeah, I'm interested, we kind of had the mindset of, all right, I'll just send them that email, then I can check it off in my mind. I did the follow-up. No, the goal is to get them on a team. So whether we find to email them, but if they don't respond to that, then we need to call them, and now we have a little bit of a better system to get people right away coming out of that Discover Your Place. And then the fifth one, what keeps people from serving, just focusing on needs instead of the gifts of people. And so I mentioned that earlier, that we want to start with people. What are your gifts? What are your passions? Where would you like to serve? Instead of just, hey, we've got some holes here. Do you think, I know you're kind of an angry person. You never smile, but we really need more greeters. Would you just kind of, would you jump in right here, be a good sport? Okay, we just need bodies, all right? We just need warm bodies there. What'll happen with that, and I know that's kind of, well, it's not an extreme example. It's happened in my church. But what happens with that over time, if somebody is serving in an area in which they're not gifted in, they're not passionate about, okay, it's not their skills, two things will happen. One is everybody they interact with, everybody they serve with, will feel that, and they will not have a good experience. So we don't want people serving in kids check-in who don't like kids, who don't like families. Do we need more people? Yeah, but it can't be the wrong person in there, because now someone drops their kids off. Excellent and comfort creates openness. There wasn't an excellence to that. There's not a comfort in that. And now they're in a service worried about their kids the whole time. Man, is that mean person who checked my kids in? Are they in the nursery now? Now, and so all of that stems from having people who don't have those passions, who don't have those gifts, who don't have that, just that in them. And then the second thing that'll eventually happen if someone is serving in an area that they're not gifted in, they're not passionate, it eventually they will jump off the team. Because it's not a gift. They don't feel alive. I mean, that's what strengths are. After you do, if something is a strength for you, after you do it, you feel strong after you do it. That just filled me up. But if something is not, and it's just a drag on somebody, the people they serve are going to feel it, and they're going to eventually feel it as well. And it usually doesn't end in a good place. I know for us as a church plant, that was not our philosophy when we planted the church. It was warm bodies. We just need people. We need people. If you you don't smile and shouldn't be on a guest services team, probably, okay, you kind of scare people, it's okay. You open the door and you give but then there reached a point where we need the right people in the right places. And so starting with a gift-based mindset instead of just a need-based mindset. So 4 key parts, I think, of the ministry system. They're already there for you, but I'll flesh these out just a little bit. So the first one, clear roles, responsibilities, and expectations. So we hit on that piece already a little bit. The part that I'd take that maybe to the next level with, just to, as you grow just in the church and as things change in the church, and I realize we're all in different seasons and different seasons in the church, and somebody's next step might just be, no, we just need to add some people to this team. Some of you might be in a spot church-wise where, we need to get a little bit of a better structure on our teams. One of the things that we have found helpful with this piece is having all of our teams have the same structure. So we don't have, and what I mean by that is, so for every team, I should probably write it down, but every single team in our church has the same structure of each team has a coach. There can be an assistant coach. Then you have just team members, and then there's a first serve opportunity. So worship team, now they may have a vocals coach, a band coach, or whatever, but it's the same. Okay, there's a coach who's over that team. There can be an assistant coach if it's a larger team. Sometimes there's an admin help to that or whatever. But team members, and then somebody who's serving for the first time. And that was helpful for us to just get all of our teams on the same page, so that we didn't have our worship team. They used, oh, no, we call them directors. And then our guest services, no, we call them captains. Kids team, no, we call them whatever. It was helpful for us to have clarity for every single team. Nope, coaches, assistant coaches, team members. And the names don't matter. You can name them whatever. It's just more about getting people on the same page. Each coach is responsible that when somebody new joins a team, to communicate with them, to show them what the expectations are. So every single team will have just a document that lays out just kind of the vision of the team and the responsibilities of the team as well. And that's when we communicate things like if it involves a certain time that you have to be there, and how you communicate if you can't come to when you're supposed to serve, and how to use planning center, or whatever it may be, just whatever the expectations are, and like bullet points, just kind of keep it simple with that. Whatever those expectations are, communicating that. If you have values that you want to share, like with your serving teams or whatever, that's a helpful place to do it. That was another thing that I know was helpful for us. Again, bringing all of our different teams under the same 5 values. So, like, kids team doesn't have, obviously, they have a different, vision or mission of what they're, not a different vision, but a different kind of mission of what they're trying to do, just because it's the kids' world. But kids, guest services, everybody, these are our dream team values. Because, again, no matter where somebody is serving, we try to keep just the overall team picture in our church, as I mentioned earlier, just using that dream team language. The 5 dream team values that we have currently, it's not like a secret sauce, it's just kind of in our heart. One is servant leadership. How we say it is we strive to lead like our leader, Jesus Christ. So servant leadership. The second one is teachability. And so as we describe to people what that means, it's a desire to learn and a willingness to change. So we say right at the start, teachability is a key part to being on our team. The third thing is excellence. We don't try to please God with perfection, but we want to represent Him with excellence. So we communicate that to our team. The fourth value is enjoyable. So the way we say it is we think fun is good, so let's enjoy the journey. Like, hey, let's smile, let's have fun while we're serving. And then the fifth value is trust. We just say trust is the absolute backbone of our team. And so every single team, no matter what it is, those are the 5 dream team values that we keep in front of people. So clear roles, responsibilities, and expectations. I know those are a lot of different things there. You can circle back to that in the Q&A if it's helpful. The second thing being recruitment. So how do we add new people to the team? So you already heard me say, like, if our only strategy is like what I'm doing right now, just kind of announcements, it's probably not the best strategy. Okay, so Mark, so what are some different ways? Like, how do we go about this? And can I just say this, just so everybody knows, like, this is a tension for every church. Like, the whole deal of getting new people on the team. Like, I know I'm sharing these different things here, but like we need more people. So I don't hear what I'm not saying. It's not like we are not at a spot where it's like, no, we're good. Like, we've got all we need, okay? And I've never met a church who've said that. And I would say if just to push back on that a little bit, if we have the mindset of, no, we have everything that we need, like, we're good, then perhaps the vision of it, like, needs to be stretched a little bit, and some ministry could be given away. So what do you do? Like, getting new people on the team. I think the most effective thing is teaching coaches, leaders, other people than just you how to make personal asks. So how to tap people on the shoulder, even out in the lobby after a service or whatever. Hey, have you ever thought about like jumping into the kids team? It's not every week. Like, it's not as big of a deal as you think. Or, but like, man, I just see the way you interact with families. I think you would be awesome on that team. Being able to train others to even do that, or even just starting with just having 2 or 3 people that you could talk with to just kind of help you out in that, to have those personal asks. Here's one of the things I've learned about this. The greater the ask of someone, the more intimate the conversation should be. So if you are asking someone to take on like a pretty big role, like they're going to be a coach over the guest services team, or they're going to be a coach in the kids, or they're going to take a leadership position, it should probably be a personal conversation. So, and that's what I mean by the more intimate the conversation should be. Because if you're asking someone to do a big role and it's just a text, hey, you want to be the kids team coach? Oh yeah, awesome. Awesome, but they're not feeling the weight of what you want them to feel. They won't feel the ownership. So the greater the ask, like the more intimate the conversation should be. The personal conversations, and to really kind of help people see your heart with it. For us, the second thing, so personal asks, we talked earlier about those Discover events. For us, those have been a huge part of the flow of just getting new people onto the team. Just that process. The third thing, we've talked about this already, but just to say it again, like just sharing stories of people who are serving and making a difference. Finding every way to like intertwine those in your messages. Sometimes I know sometimes I'll start just a message by saying, hey, like before we jump in, I just want to say thank you so much to our dream team today. I'll get personal with it too, is, hey, as somebody who has 2 daughters, 3rd and 5th grade, to all the kids team members here today, I just want you to know how big of a difference it makes that you serve. Last Sunday, my daughter came home and she shared like the memory verse for me. So kids team, I just want you to know right now, I'm not even saying this on behalf of the church, like as a father, thank you for serving. Like, thank you for the difference that you make. Like, it honors the kids team members, but then there are other people who are, like, hadn't found a place to serve yet, and it's, my goodness, like, yeah, like, I'd like to, like, I at least won't turn it off, like, for right now. So sharing stories in that way. I think another one would be teaching series and individual messages, and that's not news to you, but if you feel like you're in a season where it'd be a good time to do even a series on serving and the difference that makes. But it doesn't always have to be a series. Like, you know, you could be in a series like we are right now in relationships, talking about being selfless, and there's an opportunity to speak into that right there. And then just at a very practical level, like I mentioned earlier, we do use a connection card, and one of the things on there all the time is just Dream Team. Somebody can mark that off, and there's a whole follow-up system to kind of help people jump in to that right there. So just a few thoughts on recruitment. We can come back to that if it's helpful in the Q&A. The third thing with training. So training. So how do we train new team members to serve in the way that we would like them to serve? So I mentioned earlier that when someone expresses that interest, there's a follow-up system in place. That coach, that team leader will send some of the expectations and start that conversation. One of the things that is a part of our system, it was kind of tied to assimilation earlier, is we have set up, because here's the other thing we started to see, especially as things grew a little bit, it started coming a little bit chaotic as far as when people would like join the team. Like, this person's trying to get, like, hey, meet me this Sunday to serve or whatever. So we've kind of like systematized all of that. And so the 4th Sunday for us is a shadow Sunday. So if no matter what team it is, we can always point people to, and it works within our flow, because even at that 3rd Sunday on Discover Your Place, we'll say right there, like, you're meeting with a representative of that team, but then we can also say, hey, next Sunday is a shadow Sunday. And it's gotten away from, so we don't have to do, I'll shoot you an email and I'll let you know, like, whatever. And then 2 weeks pass or whatever, and that fire in that person is not there. So it's like, you know, discover Epic, discover your design, discover your place. Okay, and then, hey, next Sunday. Now, if they can't make it, like if I'm out of town next Sunday, then that coach or that team leader will just can kind of adjust with that. It's not like, again, not everybody works through all of those weeks completely just perfectly. But I think having some structure to that, I know, has been helpful for us when it comes to getting them into those shadow Sundays. And for us, it is a big deal, especially like Dan mentioned earlier with like some of the worship team. So like for us, just in our world of being portable, so our setup teams and our worship teams and some of our kids teams, because we're setting up these environments, that means being there on Sunday at 6 a.m. And so the big reason for us doing a shadow Sunday is, hey, before I get you on this team, before any of this, like for the worship team, before you even do like any audition, any of that, like, let's see if you can be there at 6 a.m. on a Sunday. Because if you can't, that's okay. But we just kind of need to know that first before we go any further to that. So yeah, so those shadow Sundays have been helpful for us, making those personal asks. Another thing with the training is we do basically 2 different big team nights a year, where we've actually done some of them here before because we don't have space to do things like that. But we've done team nights before where we try to get all of our dream team here. We usually do a baptism as a part of that as well, just so that our team members can see like the difference that their serving makes. And I'll share something just from kind of my heart just to all of our dream team, and then usually there's kind of break off into their individual teams. But those are just opportunities for more training throughout the year. So there might be something in our kids ministry that needs to be tightened up a little bit or whatever, or something new to communicate so that's what those nights are used for. And then a simple thing, just even for the training thing, Dan mentioned it earlier with the huddle times. But those are good things for that too. So and this isn't for everybody, that's okay, because I know I'm throwing a lot out right now. On every Sunday, our kids team, they do their own huddles. Our guest services team, they do their own huddles. Our worship team, they do their own huddles. And so, and then like same thing with setup and teardown teams as well. And so we use those huddles just as little kind of real-time information. Hey, guys, remember, so it's pouring outside today. So this is guest services team huddle. It's pouring outside today. Let's remember, like, hey, we've got some umbrellas over here. If you see somebody who kind of use some help with that. So it's just that's like ongoing training. I mentioned earlier about the guest services, that like the prop on the door versus opening the door. That came out of because we saw like one Sunday, a guest services team, I'll just prop this door open and sit over here and like just kind of talk over here, be on my phone or something. So, okay, training, real time. Hey guys, we don't prop, because here's the thing. Someone asked earlier, it came from over here. I don't remember the question with the worship system. Oh, with being late. So how do you approach that? You give the why behind the what. So hey guys, here's why it matters to be on time. Here's why it matters to open that door for people, because when we do that, bam, and you just kind of keep that why in front of, because I think every worship team probably, we do with 6 a.m., people are like, hey, here's why this matters, okay, because it sets the whole morning off track with time, like when you're not, and then if somebody doesn't get that why consistently, then there's changes in scheduling and whatever, but so those huddle times are consistent times. And then the last thing that you see there is just celebrating. Just keeping that culture of celebrating alive. I know I've hit on a few things with that, but letting people know that they are valued and appreciated. I say all of the time, like, man, we would not, and it's so true, like, we would not be who we are as a church without our dream team. I tell people constantly, like, man, if it was only up to our staff, imagine how horrible this would be. Like, if all of this didn't have, just letting people know that they're valued. One of the things that's on my just personal schedule every week on Monday afternoons, I send 2 handwritten thank you notes each week to different dream team members. Hey, I saw the way you served last Sunday. Thank you so much. Just those consistent ways to celebrate those things. And you can go deeper into this. I know our kids, our next gen director, as she onboards people just in the whole process with the application, she asks, like, what's your favorite drink? What's your favorite candy bar? And after somebody somebody serving for the first time, that person already forgot that they wrote that down, but when they're serving for the first time, like, there it is for them. And it's just a little bit of celebration thing. So the handwritten notes, I write those personally to a few people each week. We talked about the huddles. One of the things we do in all of our huddles is we share wins as well. So for us, a win is a name and a story, not a number. It's a name and a story of somebody who's had their life changed by God or who's made strides in their faith. And in all of our huddles, we share those wins with people, because that's what keeps some of the fire alive for the people who are serving. It doesn't just become the task. They're connected to the bigger vision. And then the last thing, just celebrate it. We do a big kind of dream team night once a year. That's just, the past couple of years has just been at a banquet hall in town, and it's a little bit more of an investment, but it truly pays for itself every single year to have just kind of a nice catered dinner at a place, and just we do it's from the office or wherever, but we just call them EPIs, and we give out just these awards to people based on a certain value. Okay, so this is a trust EPI or whatever. In our huddles, so our worship pastor, Ray Hammond, he does a good job. Once a month, he'll do paper plate awards. And so he'll, like, hey, I'm giving out a trust award today, keeping to those 5 values, and he'll mention why. It's a paper plate. He writes on it. There's a $5 Starbucks gift card taped to it. But he just celebrates somebody, and you'll be amazed, like, how, like, it's a paper plate award. These EPIs are these cheap, trophies. There's enough, like, but people keep them. Like, we've seen people post pictures of them. Got a paper plate award today, and it's just, it's silly. It doesn't take much, but it's a huge deal just with the overall culture. And to encourage you guys, like, with this piece, like to build that culture, to keep investing in that culture. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, just start small. I think it starts in our heart. Just kind of start off the process. It takes some time to it. But last thing I'd say with the ministry system is like there's no silver bullet to it. There's no silver bullet. There's no one thing. If I start doing this, then it's going to explode with new people serving. I think it takes all of these things into the culture, and then some things that you guys are thinking of that you do well, that you've found success in, all of those things kind of building into that culture. So I'll stop there. Just, I guess, Q&A wise, any questions at all?
I have quite a few, and I know others do too, but I'll just kind of start with a big overarching question. Mark, Rick, how much time do you personally spend managing and monitoring the systems versus other people within your organization, church?
Yeah. So because like the illustration that I always use with all of these different systems and how they're doing is like you think about like a soundboard and the different like dials or whatever on a soundboard. I don't know if digital boards have dials like that. I don't know really much about it, but you picture like a soundboard. I know I'll have consistent times to just think it through. Okay, which one needs to be like turned up a little bit? If I'm honest with myself, I'll look at it and say they all need to be turned up. Like there's every single one of them. Like there's something we could like improve on. But which one needs a little bit more attention? And what do we have to do from my own standpoint with that? So what a recent one was our ministry system. And so with that, because I knew it kind of involved everybody, that was something we had our whole staff in. Okay, what are we doing well? Where are some of the cracks? Like what are we missing? And out of those times were some of the adjustments that we made, especially like to that Discover Track process and some things that were falling in place. But so that's something like with all of the systems, I feel like that I'm probably constantly thinking about. I mean, just the way I'm wired, like I have to put that in my calendar. So like a 2-hour block on a Wednesday afternoon to work on, to think through like that ministry system, because it's too much and it's too overwhelming to think like fixing them and changing them all at once. For me, when I think that way, I just procrastinate and nothing gets done. So if I can just kind of do one at a time to work at it.
Would you say that's how you instituted them as well? It's kind of one at a time, or did you try to institute multiple systems?
Yeah, when we started the church, we had a little bit of each system like in place. So we had some assimilation stuff in place, some follow-up. There were some financial systems that we had in place, some things, the evangelism, and so there's some things that we've had in place. But each of those systems have grown a little bit and have changed. And a lot of it happens like in real time as well with like, hey, what are we doing with the new believer follow-up? Like it might sometimes that comes out of a conversation in the hallway. Well, maybe we should, are we being clear enough with people like, hey, if you made a first-time decision today, just go right back to the info center. We've got a new believer Bible for you right there. Well, that's like a change in the system, and we have them written down and stuff like that. So but a lot of that like can just kind of can happen in real time. There are other times when if there's a certain system I want to like that I want to get some. So like I remember we had a time with an assimilation system. I didn't have everybody on our staff in that, but there are 2 staff members who like just think really well and who are involved in it. Like it's going to impact them. Like one of our staff is over kind of the database management system and the follow-up and stuff, so she kind of needs to be in that. So I don't know if that helps with that.
It does. I mean, and I don't want to monopolize, so somebody else raise your hand and I'll stop. But it does, except that you're talking about staff, and I'm working with volunteers.
Yep.
And so I'm trying to kind of parse out what you're saying and saying, okay, I'm working with people who are working full-time and they don't have the ability to kind of focus in the way that I could expect a staff person to. So I'm trying to put it in that context, and I know you didn't start with 5 staff, so maybe just talk to that for a second and then morph into how do you deal. I sense a kindred spirit with your structure and administrative mind, but I know you don't work with everybody who's purely structured and loves structure and loves to be accountable to that. So tell me about how you deal with the pushback and people who just like to go with the flow and don't like to follow a system per se. Talk about that, but maybe talk about the first one in terms of working with volunteers.
Yeah, so early on, just like with the like when we started the church, with the assimilation system, I was writing the handwritten notes to first time guests. I was doing the emails to them. Like I was involved with that pretty heavily on our launch day, because pretty much everyone there was a first time guest. Like I had some help with that, but initially, like I started that, and I think this is an encouragement, like for all of us. If there's a system, like it's okay to just like, hey, start small with it. Like you just, then when it starts to outgrow what you can do, like start to think about somebody who you can hand that off to. With even the ministry system, like early on, like we had one other staff with us, Pastor Ray, but early on, like I was like basically over every other team. So I was recruiting people to set up and tear down team, and I got services, not kids, but so I was over all of those pieces. And so you just like, you maximize what you can do with that. And that's a great starting point, like even with different teams, if that's on your mind, like, hey, just focus on one team and get started with that, add people to the team. But what I try to do is, as people were coming onto that team, like starting to identify people who could lead that team, or at least take some of the admin of the scheduling and all of that. So I did like most of what we're talking about today, but then each step along the way, just figure out like how you can scale things out. I guess the second question, like with our staff, we've just had to be strong, like as things have grown a little bit, like with our systems and stuff and how we do things, that it has to be like, it just has to be repeatable. It has to be clear. Otherwise it's a system that's dependent on one person just kind of doing everything. The best way, by the way, to figure out like even how strong some of the systems are is just to take yourself out of it, or to take whoever's over it out of it and see if it still runs on stuff. I remember the first Sunday I missed personally in our church. It was 6 weeks into the church, and I was kind of excited for that, because hey, let's see which things are too dependent on me, and which things kind of hold up. And there were some things that, hey, this didn't get done. And for me, that was like, all right, well, that's kind of dependent on me, probably too much. I need to figure out how to like get some other people into that. So I think it's just helping people see that some of those key leaders or whatever, that, hey, we can't like, we're not going to be able to operate long term if everything is just kind of, fly by the seat. But I'd also say this, because we also have a couple staff, even probably some key leaders, who need everything to be perfect before getting started on something. And so I think there's probably a middle part to that, because we don't need to spend 6 months on a handbook for the guest services team to start a guest service. Like, there is also some to just let's just get people, let's just go. Like, we can, because you're always going to be working on it. So there's you kind of balance those if that piece makes sense.
And I actually want to piggyback on exactly what you were just talking about there. The kind of as the system is getting developed, as you're figuring out what the system needs to be, and I know systems are constantly changing, what experience do you have do you just change one little piece every week? Or do you like wait to the end of the month and change a couple things at the end of the month in a batch? I struggle with knowing when to roll out changes that are incremental changes along the way. Could you speak to that?
Yeah. So I'll use the Discover Track part that we talked about earlier as an example. It's just the first thing that comes to mind. You can tell me if it's helpful or not helpful. So with that, our system used to be, and again, don't let go. Like, I feel like it was like when I first heard systems talk, like it took me like 3 years. Like, what is a system really? What? It's what you do. That's really what it is. So our system for that whole getting connected piece, like as I said earlier, we had different. At first, we tried it at 5 o'clock, and like some people came initially, and then we like made little tweaks to that. Like we started adding childcare. Hey, what if we have dinner there? We started trying just different things, different tweaks to it, until we found out like no, there's something bigger here to it. And then that became like, you know what, we need to change like the system to it. And then we moved to having it during the second service, some of the things we talked about earlier. And we're still making tweaks to that like even in that system right now, like we feel like the overall is working with, but there's always tweaks, even down to just the very practical, like, hey, nobody's taking these snacks. Why are we spending money on them? Let's just do water there. There are little tweaks that we had to make with that, just making it clear for people, like, so if they come to the first service and they have kids and they're in Epic Kids, what's the process? Like, do they come get their kids out, hold on to them for 15 minutes, and then put them back in? Like, so there are little tweaks like that we had to figure out. And I think a lot of that is just evaluating those things just constantly. And we talk often about 1% improvements, just 1% improvements, just make it a little better. And then over some time, some things happen. Does that help to that part of it?
Very much. I guess the follow-up is that is for the parts that you're trying to document and actually have a written procedure or process. Like when it comes to just, hey, we're not going to bring snacks next week, we're going to try this different thing. Like, yeah, it's pretty easy to incrementally try. But when it comes to actually formulating the formal process that you're going to like print on a piece of paper and hand out to people, are you changing that process each week, or are you waiting for periods to change that process?
Yeah, and I would say that part is like totally dependent on the season like that you're in. And so if it's like, if in this season, like you're the person who, puts the snacks out and gets the room ready and all of that, then like don't let that weigh you down. You don't need to, oh gosh, now I got to open that file and take off, put snacks out, okay? So like just, if you're in that season to where it's say you doing that or whatever, then yeah, like I don't think you need to get bogged down like into that. But when it reaches a point when like, no, we have to have this written down because we want to be able to put it in the hands of somebody who's never set it up before and make it easy for them, then it becomes important to do that. So we use a little, it's just a checklist system. Maybe some of you guys use it. It's called Sweet Process. I think there's a free version at first. I think we use it's a subscription now for us, but it's just a very clean kind of way to put all of any process that you have down. You can have pictures in there, anything. So the person for us who oversees that Discover track, she has a Sweet Process thing for that. So now, like, if when we take snacks out, she'll update that only because that'll impact the people who are setting it up. But yeah, I think if it's in a season where it's like, you know what, we just need to get this thing started. Like we just need to, we just need to see if this is the right time or the right curriculum, whatever. I wouldn't get bogged down too much into that. But if it reaches a point again where it has to be handed off to 4 or 5 different people, or you want someone to set it up who's never done it before, then that's when kind of the checklists become important. That's no, that's so good because you're right. That is what happens. Like so, early on, like as I mentioned, like guest services team. Like early on, it was just, hey, just can you stand there and just like give somebody a pro? Can you just like do that? But then you start to see things that you want to like train through. Like one thing, like with the when you set those expectations out again, like at the appropriate time, we didn't have that like a guest services team, like those expectations. We didn't have those settled the way that like in a certain season that we do now. But each like, and this goes back to the question about like what do you change? We started to notice things that we needed to train a little better in. So for example, we had a guest service, a greeter who was constantly saying, "Are you new here? Are you new here?" And like in the first couple weeks, like it was okay, but then it like started offending people. No, like I've been here for 4 months. Like this church doesn't know who I am. And so then we had to up that ante, to use your words, to train people. No, these are the phrases that like that, and we say those in huddles. Like we actually, like, well, and it's not like a legalistic. It's not like it's, we have a bunch of robots out there. I mean, you keep the heart of it. But hey, like, great to see you today. Like, glad you're here today. Not just, is this your first time? I could tell you were probably new. You look lost. It's like, so like you said, as you, but it does when you set those expectations, like. People will see. If you have a new kids team leader coming on and it's just like, yeah, just kind of go in and, then that's gonna bring a certain a certain level. But yeah, I know the overwhelming piece of just like even thinking through the ministry system. I'd encourage you to like just think about think about one team, like or think about just one team that you could add maybe some strength to. And it takes time. It's a little bit of a marathon to it, but